My name's Dave Anderson. This is a continuing effort to discuss PTSD and complex PTSD as it pertains to straight incorporated survivors. PTSD is an umbrella term for what they call clusters of symptoms. And what I wanted to do was talk about one of these clusters that falls underneath that umbrella. And it's called avoidance. It's interesting, the psychological and psychiatric community have come up with this acknowledgement of symptoms of avoidance. And, they've narrowed it down to basically two things. Avoiding external remedies or reminders of what happened. Anytime we see anything that remotely reminds us, it'll throw us into a tizzy. That's for sure. The second is avoiding trauma-related thoughts or emotions. And it says that sometimes this, is through the use of drugs and alcohol. Duh. I think any straight survivor in their right mind, these are a given. No shit. Closer to the truth, I avoid the shit out of the simplest things. From the simplest things to the most detrimental things pertaining to my own health. Medications, doctor's visits, appointments. The things that are even nearer and dearer to my own heart. My dog, Lulu. She's 5 years old and I hadn't got her spayed yet. I mean, it's okay. She's with me 24 hours a day. She's right there. And I know she's safe. But still, she's with me all the time. And we're an agoraphobic team. And that keeps us off the streets. Truth of the matter, folks, is I run a monopoly on avoidance. I have it down to a very keen science. I really do. I mean, it's something that I spoke with a therapist about one time. And we were talking about this avoidance thing, and she says, it's an ineffective coping skill. And I replied, my retort was, it seems to work pretty well for me. And I wholeheartedly believe that. And there's still a significant part of me that does. Now, for a survivor, this avoidance thing, I think, is a real self-absorbed kind of all-encompassing kind of issue. It's all about Dave. The problem with that is Dave has to deal with other people. And they see my avoidance too. Especially the ones that get nearer and closer and closer and closer to Dave. My spouse. She has a totally different take on avoidance than I do. Where it works for me, it doesn't work for her so much. I'm not talking about, just walking over a dirty towel, stepping over a dirty sock. I do that too. But more so, avoiding friendships with other people. My wife is a very gregarious person. She's very outgoing. She is a power to contend with. Loves people. But because of my avoidance and her wanting to nurture me, that affects her. I start avoiding things like, like taking my meds or something like that. This concerns her. I've already had a heart attack. I've had a stroke. But since I'm avoiding things, it profoundly affects the ones we love. And we're very guarded about, our avoidance, or at least I am. I don't want to push it. I wonder recently, what's going on between my ears? It's not like, ooh, that sock, it threatens me. It reminds me of straight. I'm going to step over it. Ooh, that dirty towel, it reminds me of Straight Incorporated. I'm going to step right over it. No, that's not the case at all. Usually because my mind is so engrossed in thought. I'm so wrapped up in my own thinking. Not necessarily about straight, but just thinking about daily survival, and I'm just so wrapped up into that. I don't even see that dirty sock. I don't see that dirty towel. Shortly after my heart attack, I remember sitting while my wife went to work, and she would come home. She said, "What did you do today?" And I honestly couldn't tell her what I did. I could say, I got out of bed, I made it to the couch. Imagine, how that affects somebody. But it's not that I purposely avoided anything. I was just so engrossed. And when I talked about the clusters of PTSD underneath that umbrella, one of those clusters is depression. Now, what happens when depression gets interwoven inside avoidance? You get a crippling state of being. I took a real perverse pride in my ability to avoid. But I also found that it slowly painted me into a corner. And so when you read, or a loved one, you folks read, this thing about avoidance, and it talks about avoiding external reminders of the trauma. You see us just avoiding, talking or thinking about, or just skating away from our emotions about Straight Incorporated. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Just the tip of the iceberg. Avoidance for a survivor of these shitholes goes way deeper than just those two sets of criteria set out by the DSM-5. I hope this gives you something to think about, something to talk about. And if you feel like it, let me know what you think. I appreciate you listening.